this place has gone by many titles. The Italian Grand Prix, the San Marino Grand Prix, and now it's the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Welcome to Grand Prix Sunday. A lap of Imola, anti-clockwise of course, unlike most Formula One circuits, will take our drivers round 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. And starting next to them is George Russell. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Behrman, Mayer, Carlos Sainz, and Norris. Hadjar, Alonso, Antonelli, and Liam Lawson. Ocon, Gasly, Jack Doohan, and Colapinto. Jackson, Maloney, Nico Hülkenberg, Gabriel Bortoleto, Pepe Marti, Albon, Aaron, and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. And so, we welcome you to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. Alongside me for this race, and it's going to be some race, is Anthony Davidson. Well, they say you're only as good as your last race. And on evidence there, that was very good indeed. How do they carry that form through to today?
You've done it once, can you do it again? But, you know, if you start believing in yourself and the confidence starts to build, that inner confidence is what you need. And you can carry that through to future races, including this one, and you set that ball rolling. That's the critical thing that they're looking for here. And I believe if you've got that first race win or a win at any stage, it can start to roll with you in a good way.
Here we go then. The formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. As the cars come back to the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that within the points.
All right, here we are at George Russell pulling up to the front row, the inside lane here in Imola, ahead of the Red Bull. I think that's the Red Bull. I can't really tell from this size of the screen, but we'll see here in a moment from the grid order as the Aston Martin pulls up to the final grid slot. It's going to be Behrman and Mayer for row 2. 5 red lights are on here in Imola for race number 4. And the lights are off, and we're off to an okay start. Leclerc getting to push ahead. Mayer getting the toe behind us as Behrman is pushing on the outside lane behind Leclerc. Going to be dropping back side by side with Callie Mayer, who made the move on Behrman. And she's going to force us wide as she is going to be taking P2 through this fast-paced section here, Sector 1, as we're coming up to the uphill portion. Antonelli Doohan fighting for position down the grid. Jackson starting outside of the points there. He's there in P13. Albon taking a grid penalty. He's back in P17. He's been having a great race, or a great season so far with the previous races. We did switch back our liveries from Miami, so the V-Carb and the Racing Bull and the other car, I think it was the McLaren, we switched back. And we'll be switching them around. We'll switch liveries around again for Monaco next time out as we go through the rest of this grid. Wrapping up the end of lap 1, that's going to be the V-Carb and Racing Bull and Mercedes side by side through those final few corners. We see Leclerc already 2 seconds ahead. Behrman losing position on Sainz. I believe Norris lost position to Hadjar as well. A little bit of phasing going on there in the background. Russell still within DRS of Callie Mayer. Jackson still trying to hold on to Esteban Ocon. trying to make a move back up into the points. Hopefully later he can do that. The rest of the field after Behrman, all within a second of each other, so it's a very long train of cars pretty much throughout Imola here, as we're pretty overcast. Coming through Sector 2, that downhill section, very tricky downhill section, as we see Mayer still 2.2 seconds behind Leclerc, and we're going to be on board with Russell for the start of lap 3. You see he dipped out of DRS range of Callie Mayer, so he's not going to have DRS. So he's not going to really be able to defend against Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz isn't within DRS, so he's not going to have... No, I was wrong. He's still going to be within DRS. That, I believe that DRS activation point is... Or the timing line is back in Sector 3 as we cut our corners a little bit, but we're going to be staying inbound as we try to stay with Callie Mayer. We're going to be moving on to lap 4. The end of lap 4 is when we're outside of the points. But Alonso made a position on Carlos Sainz Hadjar. I don't remember what position he was in. He's going to be able to make a move on Russell for P3. On the outside, we're dumping as much battery as we can. No DRS. Carlos Sainz is trying to close in as well. Hadjar up to P6. Oh, Jackson made a move on Lawson earlier, who's now P11 from P13. As we're continuing on, we're going pretty much down a few positions to Lando Norris, who's running a pretty good race so far. He's looking to make a move on Antonelli and Behrman through Sector 1 before we get to the uphill section, but that's going to be a retirement for Norris. I believe it's going to be his first one. I could be wrong. We'll have to take another look. He's going to be pulling off to the side there as he just drops down the order. So it's going to be the first retirement of the race here. Going through the order, Alonso P3, Russell P4, Sainz P5. So Russell losing out to Alonso in the previous lap. As we're going through the end of Sector 2 to Sector 3, that's going to be Jackson and Dewin spinning out for something going on in the back end. And it's going to be a red flag, so whatever they did is going to be a red flag. Here is the onboard with Jackson behind Dewin. Coming through Sector 2. And that's going to be a spin from Dewin in Sector 2 laps. Turn 11, turn 12, as we head to a red flag. All right, there we have a safety car upgraded to a red flag. So I guess Lando Norris parked in an unsafe location. So let's see what they want us to do with our race strategy.
Okay, this is essentially a free stop, so let's think very carefully about our strategy for the rest of this race.
We were 4 laps away from our first pit stop on lap 10. I don't know if the tires will manage. That's 60% tire wear. Oh, do I want to risk it? Let's add a stint, see where that tire life would be. That would be almost 70 as well. Let's go for this strategy with another set of mediums to hards. 15 laps on the hards, I feel like will be very tough, but we're gonna have to go with it. So let's get back to it. Right back into the action. 5 red lights are on. Russell still sitting in P4, off to a good position to start here. Leclerc leading Mayer, Alonso ahead of Russell. Sainz and Hadjar are close behind. Everybody's too wide coming here to turn 2, turn 3. Very aggressive from a lot of drivers. You can see a lot of position changes going down the order. Albon up to P10. Jackson's back in P16 with that incident with Jack Dewin. Mayer surprisingly made her way up into P1. I believe she's gotten several podiums with us last season, but I don't believe she's gotten, no, I don't believe we've gotten any wins with our drivers from last season. Well, that's going to be Mayer leading George Russell behind Leclerc. So Mayer, Leclerc, Russell for our top three. Sorry. Alonso P4, Hadjar P5, Sainz, Antonelli P7, Behrman P8, Lawson P9 for Ford Racing Bulls. First points. I believe they're one of the teams that haven't scored yet. And then Albon sitting back in P10. Looking pretty good on this restart. So we look up the standings. Lando Norris currently leading the standings against Alexander Albon. And he is backed out of the race, I should say, actually. Hadjar P5, Russell fighting against Alonso for P3. Alonso is technically in this fight. He's sitting P5 behind Leclerc. He's tied with Leclerc for 36 points. And with that move on Alonso from Russell, Russell holds on to that lead. So, well, really, anybody who's capitalizing right now is Callie Mayer. She's sitting back in P9 at 14 points. So a good win for her would be great, not only for her, but for Mercedes as well. So we're going through the grid. Jackson P15 already ahead of Devon, as he's looking to make up some ground. Mercedes in a good position to score points, get ahead of Red Bull, because Red Bull is out with one driver. Behrman's P8, so that's only a handful of points. So we're going through the remainder of our drivers. We're on board with Colapinto at the end of lap 8. And with that red flag, if you guys didn't already notice, pretty much everybody's changed their tires, so it's down to a one-stop strategy for the remainder of this race, as we're on to lap 9. Pip Marty holding back, or holding on to that final spot of the race. Stroll making a move on Paul Aaron. Ocon sitting P11 behind Lawson. Albon sitting up to P9 now. We're going back through the front runners of the grid. 2 seconds between Alonso and Mayer. Leclerc and Mayer are going at it. As we see a little bit of a gap forming between Russell and Alonso. Hadjar is close behind him, so he's looking to defend against that. We're going to be inside that 1 second range to try and defend against Hadjar. Hadjar moving up to P5 will definitely help Gulf Williams with the lead of the championship. And Albon at this rate is already up in a P7, so that's going to help even more as we lose out on a position. And that's going to be component in setup issues. A little bit of a back end kick out there from Russell coming through sector 2. Coming up the hill, or end of sector 1, start of sector 2, as we're going through turn 9, turn 10. Russell's going to be continuing to chase down Hadjar as best as possible. But at this point, he's going to have to defend against Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. McLaren, the last team on the order to have points on the board, as Russell makes that move on Hadjar quite easily, I should say. Albon and Hadjar pretty close to each other, just Sainz splitting the two. Gasly up in a P10. A little bit of a 4-car train here. Leclerc pushing against Mayer. 1.3 seconds is the gap. I believe Mayer is on a slower set of tires. I could be wrong. We'll have to wait and see later, as we look to defend against Hadjar. The end of lap 11, start of lap 12. Hadjar making the move on Russell this time. Jackson still sitting in P13, looking to make a move on to Hulkenberg, who's sitting up in P12. Antonelli P8, Behrman P9. So both Gulf Williams looking to make an improvement on the race for some decent points and pushing that lead against Konnersport and Red Bull. Mercedes versus Aston Martin is looking pretty strong for Mercedes. Both Aston Martins are... Not Alonso's P3, Stroll is P18, so it's pretty widespread there. Leclerc with Ferrari scoring some much needed points as a provisional win. lap 12, so we're nearly halfway through this race already. Looking to see what we can do. We're going to be on board with Antonelli, finishing out the rest of his lap, turning through turn 17, 18. That's going to be another retirement for Antonelli. It's going to be back-to-back for him. He's not going to be the only one. That is fine. You can see the rest of the grid over here passing him as he's going to be pulling off to the left side of that main straight just before turn 1. It's going to be very unfortunate for Antonelli, very unfortunate for Mercedes, who are sitting in P4 right now in the standings, as he's going to be coming to a halt here shortly. Leclerc leading Alonso now 1.6 seconds. Mayer sitting P3. Both Hadjar and Albon are in the top 5. As we go back to our top runners, Sainz, Behrman, Gasly. Gasly's about 3 seconds back behind Behrman. And then Esteban Ocon sitting in P10, holding on to that last points position. Much needed points for Toyota GR Haas, as they really need it. And here's going to be the move from Carlos Sainz on George Russell for P6. Hadjar Albon still sitting on P5 and P4. Alonso trying to put pressure on Cali Mayer there in the background. As you guys can see, as we're on to lap 14. Aaron and Maloney switching positions down the order, coming out of the first DRS zone of the lap. And as we go through our grid order, we're going to be waiting to see who comes into the pits first, and it's actually going to be Russell as we head on over to our F1 commentators.
All right, it's Imola, and it's actually pretty overcast, as we are looking to see what drivers can do after an unfortunate red flag caused by Jack Doohan spinning out in Sector 2.
That's right. On lap 5, Doohan navigated the challenging sequence of turns 11, 12, and 13, but applied power slightly too early while taking some curb on the uphill section. This caused the car to spin. It wasn't a major incident. It was the fact that the cars needed time to clear that jam that the stewards decided to red flag the race. With the amount of time it took, most cars lost a lot of temperature in their tires and would have been an unfair advantage to those not affected. Plus, it allows all the teams to change out their tires, which with this season's regulation changes basically gives everyone a free pit stop and one less pit stop to worry about till the end of the race.
And it does seem like that pit window is underway. We saw Aiden Jackson head into the pits moments ago for a new set of hard tyres. Seems like he was in a decent fighting position to get back into the points, and with that red flag incident catching him, we see him trying to undercut the other cars that were around him.
There's a lot of strategy going on now after that restart, since teams are down one less set of tires if they did change them out, and comes down to who has the faster tires to finish out the last stint, and hope that choice lands your driver into the top 10. And if we look at our current top 10, we have Ocon in P10 for Haas's first opportunity at points. Gulf Williams is seeming like they could push for a double podium, especially after Albon's starting position at the back of the grid. And Alonso's in a decent position as well, similarly to 2023, where he could potentially fight for that third championship. It all comes down to strategy, and a regulation change is the perfect chance to give drivers that unexpected opportunity.
It would be a great opportunity to those in the backfield as we look onwards to Ted Kravitz. You are down in the pits. Tell us what you've seen since the restart.
Well, Crofty, James does make a very important point on team strategy. If you haven't noticed, Jackson has been the only driver to come into the pits so far after the restart. He was on softs, and we don't know for sure if it was a new set or a scrub set from qualifying. But we did see Jackson make up some positions, then pit for hard tyres. So he will be the first driver to be done with their pit strategy, and he just has to bring it home.
If we look at the standings from Miami, Jackson is sitting in 8th, with Konnersport sitting in 2nd behind Gulf Williams and ahead of Red Bull and Mercedes. We could possibly see a jump back up into the points, making this short run on softs a big payoff in the end for both the driver and the team.
Speaking of team, we do have Ackerman on standby for this conversation. I noticed that Russell has dropped back down the order. Is there an issue that's been going on that the team is trying to sort out?
Yes.
We came into the weekend confident, but also knowing that current components are worn, and with the current standings, we want to focus on getting ourselves situated in a comfortable position rather than taking an early penalty like several of the drivers did for today's race.
Does the team feel like they could push for a possible championship this season, if not next season?
You know, Crofty, you do ask a lot of questions with the answers right in front of you. The races tell you where the team is at, and with Russell and Jackson behind the wheel, there's no stopping them from getting onto that podium. You just watch.
I am so sorry about that, Crofty. We will check in later after the race results.
That did seem a bit uncalled for. I believe that was Konnersport's team owner, Devon Butler, with that remark. We also have Red Bull to check in with. Christian, how's the team doing with Norris's retirement?
Yeah, so the team is doing great. The retirement wasn't something unexpected. We're at the part of the season where components start to wear out on teams' cars, and we were one of the unfortunate ones to have one of our drivers knocked out of the points.
This gives Behrman a good opportunity to score some much-needed points. Any input on what the team may be looking for to prevent Behrman from retiring as well?
We've looked over the information, and Behrman should be good to finish out this race in the points.
All right, Christian, thank you for checking in with us. On another note, I was just informed directly by the stewards that Konnersport's team owner is to be summoned to the stewards for breach of regulation on live broadcast, referring to the incident a few moments ago.
That was, again, really uncalled for on their part. I understand the role of team owner can be a big challenge, but that shouldn't have happened. I feel sorry for you and Devon, and everyone a part of the sport should know that those little slip-ups can really cause some damage down the road.
On another note, we did want to bring up that the FIA has proposed a new regulation for next season, stating that no country shall host more than one race per season, which means countries like Italy would have to choose over Imola or Monza.
You also have to take into consideration about money. The USA now would have to decide between 3 tracks to elect one per season, and that's a lot of money they're losing with this new proposal.
We will have to wait and see what comes of that, as we are seeing a lot more pit stops. While Leclerc leads Hadjar by just over 4 seconds, we have Ted Kravitz down at the Alpine pit box.
Yes, Crofty, I can see one of the we've got the Alpines coming in for a stop, and I just got done talking with Ollie Oakes, team principal, as he didn't want to be on broadcast. The incident with Doohan that caused the red flag was purely a racing incident. Doohan lost control of the car and misjudged a point of reference, and that is that with no other statement from Alpine in regards to today's race performance and standings, till they feel comfortable with the information that they are gathering.
Well, Ted, you better get clear of the pits, as things do seem like they are ramping up. What do you make of the current strategies, James?
Well, if you really look at it, Gulf Williams, like I said earlier, is on par for a possible double points finish, and Leclerc seems to be holding his own, especially after that race win in Miami. And you also have Alonso, Mayer, and several other drivers in the mix, so it could be anybody's race today, which can be very exciting.
Very exciting indeed, as McLaren seem to be getting their cars under wraps from the recent performance issues. Zach, some input before we get back to the action.
Well, the team is looking to get some much-needed points on the board. With Sainz not having a great few races to start off the season, we're the last team in the order that has scored points, and we're looking to push back against Ferrari, who's our closest rival in the standings.
Any input on upgrades that the team is working on to compete? With Ferrari's Leclerc winning last time out in Miami, is there improvement that's being worked on in certain parts of the car?
Yes, we have parts being developed, as well as adjustments being made for Monaco and other tracks similar to Imola for the cars to be in a competitive state. It takes time for these things, and I feel like we have a competitive car for this season.
We thank you for that quick input, Zach, as we see the last few cars coming in for their final pit stops. And like he was saying about competitiveness, we have a very strong battle between Gulf Williams, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Konnersport. That will definitely get interesting next time out in Monaco.
Monaco will definitely be interesting with the tire compounds. We might see 3 or 4 stop strategies, and with most cars being maxed out on downforce, there will be a lot of tire wear, so it's likely to happen next time out. Let's get back to the action.
And we see Colapinto late on the pit stop onto a new set of tires. I don't know who that was ahead of him, but I think it was Alonso coming out of the pits. back on board with Russell as he's trying to defend against Behrman. Behrman having DRS and plenty of battery as Russell's on a new set of hard tires. Try to go to the end of the race on these tires with our current setup situation. Lap 21-32. Antonelli Norris out of this race. Leclerc leading Mayer. Hopefully he will have enough room for a pit stop to stay in the lead. But if Leclerc can't keep that gap, that means Mayer P1, Hajar P2, Albon P3 for a double Williams podium. We're going to be on board with Callie Mayer now coming around the final corner, or second to last corner, turn 18, turn 19. Leclerc is going to be in the pits. That's going to be unfortunate for Leclerc, so he's going to be dropping down out of the podium contention. Hajar Albon, provisional podium right now. Carlos Sainz does seem like he's going to be closing in on Albon to try to separate them from that podium. Gulf Williams with a podium right now is very dangerous, especially going into the second quarter of the season after this race. Jackson and Russell sitting on P8 and P9, so a handful of points, not enough to be happy about, but be comfortable, but we're happy about that position right now. 5 seconds is the gap between Jackson and Russell. I believe Jackson is on a faster set of tires. I could be wrong. Gasly is pushing back in P10 as we see Stroll sitting in P10 behind us now. Somebody else went in the pit. I don't quite remember. Stroll with an easy overtake on Russell for Russell to sit back in P10. Mayer is back up in the lead. Leclerc is back up in the P3 after a new set, that pit stop. And we're already 2 laps away. Now 1 lap away. Russell trying to lead against Bortoleto. Bortoleto coming in fast. Looks like he's going to be able to try to make a move here. Through sector 2, maybe sector no, into sector 1, not quite, maybe sector 2. It's going to be coming down to the final lap here as Bortoleto and Gasly are chasing down Russell. Jackson 10 seconds behind Behrman, so he's not going to be able to get up into P7. But as of right now, it looks like Mayer, Hajar, Leclerc for the podium. As Russell still defending against Bortoleto. A little bit of a back-end mishap there coming up the hill through turn 8, turn 9. Gonna be on board with Bortoleto coming down the hill. Turn 9, 10, 11 is where we had to spin earlier today, causing that red flag. But as that's going on, we have Callie Mayer coming around turn 17, 18, 19 for her first race win in our career save. She didn't get a win with Konnersport, but she will be getting a win with Mercedes. And that's going to be Hajar P2 and Leclerc P3. But as they're crossing the finish line, we're still fighting to defend against Bortoleto. Coming through the chicane in Sector 3, turn 15, DRS zone. They're going to be close, and we're starting to run out of fuel. So that's going to be Bortoleto up in the P10. That's going to be another McLaren behind us. So we're struggling for fuel at this point, which I should have put more fuel in. I felt like we had enough on that red flag, and that McLaren is going to be fighting us for the line. It's going to be knocking us back to P12.
This has been special stuff from Callie Mayer, who takes the checkered flag.
To overcome the difficult circumstances they face throughout this race today, it's not easy, and it really shows a lot of maturity, and you can use this, you can draw on this as a driver moving forward and boost your confidence through the rest of the championship.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everyone played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who's joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, there we have it. The results for the Imola Romania Grand Prix. I always forget how to say it. Aiden Jackson coming up from P15 with a component penalty up to P8, and then George Russell dropping from the front row down to P12. We had issues with components. We were having engine issues. It wasn't giving us that 100% output. You guys know what I'm talking about if you play the game. As well as setup issues. I felt like we were pretty confident in practice and qualifying with the setup issues. They obviously didn't help us out in the race because we dropped down 11 positions as George Russell. So we look at it, Andrea, Kimi, and Tinelli back-to-back retirements. He had a retirement there in the feature race for Miami. And then Lando Norris had a DNF there as well, causing that red flag from earlier. And yeah, nobody else was a lap down outside of P10 with the red flag. So that issue has been fixed. Probably has been for a while. But for a while there, I really thought both Hadjar and Albon were going to end up on the podium. We have to look at the podium again. Callie Mayer, Isaac Hadjar, Charles Leclerc, Alexander Albon coming up from P20 up to P4. He should have got driver of the day, but they gave it to Lance Stroll from P22 to P8. I don't know why they did that. But if we go back to standings, driver standings, Albon is still fighting against Leclerc for that lead. 1 point between that. Whoa, Lando Norris is actually and Isaac Hadjar. So four-way battle for the top spot. Fernando Alonso is still in the fight. Callie Mayer is still in the fight. George Russell, Aiden Jackson, not so much. And it's basically a repeat of last season where Mercedes and Konnersport are pretty much right there next to each other for points in driver standings. And as we go down the list, I believe, I didn't see what our top 10 looked like. No, it's not going to be a points finish for Haas. Esteban Ocon did not get in there. But it is Gulf Williams pushing away from Mercedes 102 points to Mercedes 70. Konnersport still fighting for that second spot at 69. Red Bull Ford not too far behind at 59. 56 for Aston Martin, 53 for Ferrari, and 31 for McLaren. So it's still a pretty widespread battle. Gulf Williams starting to pull away, so the battle is going to be continuing on for that second spot on the standings. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed. That red flag was kind of unexpected with that parking job from Lando Norris, and there's not much else. So we'll see you guys in the next one.